Hey kids, welcome. It is Conscious Embodiment with Dr. Michael Lennox here for the week of November 29th through December 5th. I'm of course here with you as I am every week with producer Zoe. How you doing, Zoe? How's the wormhole treating you?
It's all right. There's so much going on in my life, but I got my booster yesterday, so
Oh,
I feeling great.
yay! Did not know. But you're good today. The infamous next day experience.
Oh yeah, I don't have any next day things, and I'm just excited to have that, handled.
Yay!
And I'm also very excited for the episode today. I love meeting the various people in your life, your colleagues and friends. So I'm
Yes,
excited for this conversation.
Monique Ruffin is joining us. She is one of my besties and a powerful teacher and astrologer in her own right. We're going to be talking about the Pluto return of the United States, and that's a significant interview. So we're going to go a little faster through the astrology this week. There's not a whole lot to talk about. Of course, one of the things that there is to talk about is huge, but it can be brief. And that, of course, is the new Moon Total Solar Eclipse on December 3rd and the close of the wormhole. But first, I just want to throw a little nod in there for something that's energetically happening today and tomorrow. We start this week out with some really yummy energy, and we are in such an amplified time in between eclipses. And I know a lot of the days have been kind of rough. And one of the things that today and tomorrow bring to us is that Mercury, the mind, is going to be in a trine with Chiron, which means we're in good sort of thoughtfulness and communication around our hurt feelings and our wounded places. And so conversations that heal are very prominent this couple of days. A sextile to Saturn from Mercury means that anything we have to attend to that might be difficult or challenging in the world of communication will be made easier. The sun will also do the same thing, trine Chiron, sextile Saturn, because the sun and Mercury are near each other. So we are open to being with our wounded spaces and using our wisdom and what we're learning to sort of move forward more powerfully. And then Venus and Mars will both connect to Neptune, the great spirit. Heart, Venus, sextiling Neptune means if you put your tools into play in the first couple of days of this week, you can be deeply connected to love with a capital L as well as love with a small l. Venus is, personal love. Neptune is transpersonal love. And it's all over the place these first few days of the week. But it's a sextile, 60-degree energy has to be picked up to be used. So anything you put into, action these couple of days as this week begins that open your heart more will yield great results. And then Mars, trining Neptune, opens us up to receive guidance from our intuitive spaces and some ease with connecting to our spiritual centers, again, through whatever practices that you might put in place to connect to your spiritual center. So these first couple of days of this week have some juiciness with regard to positive sense of healing and conversations that shift and change dynamics that you're having in personal relationships and even with yourself in the mirror. So how about that for the first couple of days of this week? Of course, the very big news of the week is the new moon. It's a total solar eclipse. It's in the sign of Sagittarius. Hits on December 3rd at 11:42 p.m. Pacific time. So that's December 4th for many of you. And this is the last of the two eclipses. So in a technical way, it closes the wormhole on the one hand, but it's also a new moon and a new cycle, like a new lunar cycle that's being kicked off by an eclipse. There are some astrologers who might say that the wormhole lasts throughout the whole next lunar cycle, so the entire month of December.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
it stands to reason that even though this ends the technical wormhole, as I might describe it, you can certainly count on December as being pretty amplified because of this eclipse kicking off the lunar cycle and some of the stuff that's happening energetically later in the month. But of course, it starts with this pretty powerful new moon moment on December 3rd. Sagittarius is the mansion where we consider our spiritual seeking. It's the sign that invented all of the explorations that make our lives more rich. So education, travel, experiences of all sorts. This is a Sagittarius sensibility. So this is the new moon where you want to set intentions for all of the expansion that you would like to bring in to your experience. Because if it's possible, Sagittarius can make it happen because it's the sign that invented sort of all possibility. So it's a marvelous sort of end of the year moment to dig in. What do you want to create for yourself that will bring you more wisdom, more expansion, more abundance and prosperity? All of the Jupiter / Sagittarius consciousness is built into this new moon. And because it's an eclipse, it carries with it the sort of transformative sensibility that eclipses bring. And so there's just more legs to the intentions that we set at this time. Because Mercury is in Sag right near the new moon, our mind is dialed right in to the intentions we set at this time. What that means is that for the next 88 days, as Mercury continues his orbit, he will deliver the energy of the intentions we set now to other areas of our consciousness as we go. So that sort of increases the possibility of the power of this moment to set intentions for more, again, of everything and anything you want more of. This is that moment. Trine to Chiron means it's a healing moment. The fact that the inconjunct to Uranus is in place during this new moon, the great eliminator angle, implies that as we seek to move forward in new ways, we are also simultaneously dropping the baggage that we've been working on healing and letting go of to move a little faster. Not the same kind of release that you might have in a full moon, where the lunation itself is designed to go into your deep psyche and transform things that are ready to be released. This is more like when the booster rocket blows up and drops off so that the rocket shooting off into space can move faster. That's what this new moon has sort of built into it, that the fuel tank we needed to get here drops away. We can soar a little bit higher, a little bit faster. And the last thing I'll say is that Venus and Pluto are hanging out as Venus is going to get ready to go retrograde later this month. So it's a huge, I'll be talking much more about this in weeks to come. But Venus in Capricorn is very connected to the structures of how we give and receive love. Saturn is the ruler of Capricorn, so structure is the Capricorn way. Venus is love. So Venus spending many, many months in Capricorn and going retrograde is going to help us make more room in our hearts for all the more that I'm telling you this new moon can bring to you if you dial your intentions in to have the more that I keep talking about, right? So it's a great setup as we finish out this tumultuous year to sort of dig in and say, here's what I wish to create for the year to come and then, where we're moving into the future. And just know that the heart has to go through some processes over the next couple of months so that we can really deserve all that we say to ourselves today. We are ready to draw in and create and manifest. Trust that the heartfelt work of making space to really own more of the bounty you wish to create is also possible through the retrograde to come. Powerful moment, though, for really digging in and saying, this I want more of.
Have at it.
Indeed. Have at it.
Thursday is the first Thursday of the month, and you know what that means. We have Michael's Global Healing Meditation this Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific Time. This is an opportunity to learn a little bit more about the astrology for the month and dive into a healing meditation in community. To receive the Zoom link in your inbox, you can head over to michaellennox.com and sign up for our email list.
All right, kids, it is the fifth Monday of the month. And if you're new to the podcast, the fifth Monday of every month, when there are 5 Mondays, is reserved for interviews, for bringing on people to share some space and some time on my podcast. You know, and when we started the podcast out, this is what we sort of came up with, the structure, that this would be a great time. And I knew instantaneously who I wanted on for my first 2 guests. And actually, as it turns out, the very first month we launched was a 5 Monday month. That was August. And so our very first guest in this format was our very own producer, Zoe. So if you are new to the pod and you want to learn more about producer Zoe, go back to August 30th. That was the fifth Monday in August, and Zoe was the guest. And so you can check that out and learn more about Zoe. But today's guest was the 100% first person that popped up into my mind and heart of people that I wanted on the show as my guest. Not only because there's a powerful thing happening in astrology with reference to the chart of the United States that is happening next year that I've been talking about for a year or two now. Monique and I, my guest, have talked about this a little bit as well. And so I thought, what a perfect format as we anticipate moving into next year to have a conversation about race, racism in America, the chart of the United States, and the Pluto return of that chart. But first, we have to meet one of my favorite people on the planet, one of my most beloved friends, one of the people that I call on when I need a sacred reflection of struggly moments. Monique Ruffin. Monique is a spiritual coach. She is an astrologer. She refers to herself as the Moon Mama, which I love because I'm like the sun dude and she's the Moon Mama. Monique Ruffin, welcome to Conscious Embodiment. I'm so glad to have you here today.
Thank you so much. Should I call you Dr. Michael?
No, baby. Call me Michael. Call me Michael.
Okay, but thank you so much. And I will say that, you know, I love being here, but you are someone that I call upon when I am in my own personal moments of struggle and challenge. And so you are very much a doctor in my life on so many levels. So thank you.
All right, baby.
Okay.
Well, lovely to have you here. I want to start out, before we get into the depth of the conversation about Pluto return, let's just take a couple of minutes and let people in my audience get to know you. And you certainly have an interesting life journey, and a lot of who you are today as a Black woman out there spiritually coaching people in a big way comes from the childhood you had. So give us a little bit about where you come from, Monique.
Yes, thank you so much. So I was born in 1968, which was a hot time in the United States. Like, you know, Kennedy's and King, and in the 60s, you know, the Black Power movement, the Civil Rights movement. I was born in race. Yes. And I lived in Watts. So I lived in Watts right after the race riots, you know, of like 67 or something like that.
Yep.
So that was just a part of my my environment, you know, race, America, Black people, poverty, you know, revolution. It was just what was happening in the background of my life, even though I wasn't old enough to know what any of it meant.
Right. And the foreground of your life was not exactly easy street either.
Yes. So there was a lot that, you know, so my parents were both addicted. They were young.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather or great grandfather was a minister of a church that the church was our family's church. He died in the 50s, but the church was still a part of the family when I was born. So it was just a mix of all of these political, spiritual,
religious, race. Yeah.
Right. And
All
then
of it.
education on top of it, because I went to school and studied politics and history. So it's in my cells. I just don't know anything any different than this American experience.
I love that you brought up your education experience because I didn't meet you until much later in life. We met as older adults.
Yeah.
But you, as a young woman, a young Black woman at Howard University in studying political science, like, who do you think you were at that time? What did you think your life was going to be?
Wow, it's really interesting because I really believed that I was going to be someone who was very politically involved.
Yeah.
I was convinced that politics was going to be the way that I moved through the world. So I was either going to be an attorney or a politician. And when I was at Howard University studying and doing internships on Capitol Hill and for the Justice Department, and, I had the opportunity to be around for small amounts of time, people like Jesse Jackson and what's his name, who became the president? I can't even think of his name. Oh, Bill Clinton. But because that was when I was there at Howard during that time. And realized just at an event that I was volunteering for, oh, this is a sharkish industry. This is for people who are out for blood. And I am not made of this.
No.
Right.
No,
and so even as I was studying, I was studying like the beginning of the nation and how slavery got started and why Black people were in the experience that we were in. I was also aware of like, I'm not made of this. Yeah. This is not who I am. And came home with my tail tucked and started studying spirituality. Went to University of Santa Monica to get a master's in spirituality.
Oh, no, because I met you much later, only about 15 years ago, right?
Yes.
So we were well long in the tooth by then, and you had already. I met you as someone who would come out of the Agape Spiritual Practitioner Training Program.
Yes.
So I didn't realize that your spiritual journey started like way back then. Give us a little bit about that. Like, how did you move from political sensibilities into spiritual path?
Yes. So I was raised by a family, in a lot of Black families, there is a belief that politics was the way that we were going to get our equality.
Yeah.
That was the Martin Luther King thing. Like, we need political equality. So I grew up in a family that really promoted voting and political activity. And I was a part of that. And in that, the vote really happened at my house. Like literally the voting pool. Yes, it happened at my house.
I get it.
So when I got to school and started studying it and saw how the systems were actually created, I realized these systems are not coming undone. They are working.
Right. They are working for their, their
for the way to the right. And what I realized was that being a Black person in this country meant that you were really born into a lower caste system, like India, that cannot be changed. It is functioning the way it's meant to be. And I also realized that all the people who came to this country to get freedom, who fled persecution, and were coming and standing on the backs of Black people. The reason they could access economic freedom because they buy into the white identity that Black people cannot, because we are a fixed resource of either free or low labor.
That's right.
And even if it's not work, it's the housing market, it's the banking market, it's everything, right? It's in the medical, it's everywhere you go.
Everywhere.
You get to see this different way of approaching Black people that is legal. That it's actually a legal way that we have to create laws so that people won't do it, right?
Right. Right.
But once I saw that, I was like, oh, politics is not the way to do it. It's not going to happen that way. Spirituality was the way to do it.
Cannot wait to get to that piece. But let's go first into
Mhm.
the sense of the astrological piece of this, and something that you've just laid out for us, which is that racism in America is structural.
Yes. It's
It ain't
systemic.
personal.
Yeah.
It's not inside of us. It's not about, am I racist? Am I not in my heart? I mean, that may be something that all of us have
Yes.
to sort of look at, and that is a thing.
Right.
But the challenge with the United States of America isn't racist hearts, it's racist structure.
Yes.
Because hearts can be changed.
Well, hearts can be changed, but the hearts that created the system were racist. Right?
Right.
There were hearts that created the system that keep the system in place, and the system economically and all that sort of stuff. What happens is, getting people to realize that they are benefiting from a system, and they gain this benefit is a hard thing. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
I do, honey.
Yes.
I do. It's like
Okay.
no matter where you slice it,
That's right.
it's hard work,
That's right.
and it is the impossible task. And as astrologers, you and I have been enjoying something particular in the last couple of years, because we've been privately in friendship talking to each other about watching what's happening on the planet as
Yes.
various cycles start to heat this shit up.
Right.
And I remember in January of 2020, you and I getting on the phone every couple of days, because we knew that January 2020 was going to bring all kinds of changes in structure, breakdowns, and crazy stuff. But who knew how much it was going to be? And you and I have been looking at this every step of the way. So let me talk specifically about the Pluto return of the chart of the United States of America.
Yes.
I'll do this as quickly as I can without rushing too much to so okay. So every entity has a chart associated with it. You, of course, you meaning listeners, everybody's got their birth chart. A country has a birth chart, if you will. A company, a corporation, a project, all have birth charts or natal charts. I guess that's not the right word, but a chart associated with the inciting moment. And for me, it's July 4th, 1776, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Some people like to cast the chart for the United States as connecting with the Constitution or the actual forming of the United States as a country. I think the Declaration piece is the way to go, and where most people go to cast the chart. And it's literally July 4th, I do 12 noon, 1776, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And in that chart, the planet Pluto was located at 27 degrees, 33 minutes of Capricorn. So, Pluto is going to be at 27 degrees, 33 minutes of Capricorn 3 times next year. That means that Pluto is returning to where he was when the United States was formed. That's called a Pluto return. None of us have had Pluto returns, honey, because none of us lived to 275 years old, right?
Not anymore.
So, not anymore, right? Good point, honey. So it's not like we have a lot of information about what this is, because it's a new idea to even consider it. But what do we know about Pluto? Pluto is the planet that owns the shadow, the hidden, the power and authority struggles that are stuck in the basement that drive our shadow stuff and our ways in which our unconscious, causes us to act and behave, and especially the things we want hidden, away from view, that we do not want to look at. So when I think about July 4th, 1776, and a document that declared loudly for the entire world to see that the United States was the place where all men are created equal, and that is the sort of founding message of that document, and the profound lie that was, because there were all of these human beings that were not being treated as equal. That, to me, is the shadow of the United States, period. Beginning, middle, and end of the story. Racism is at the heart of what's challenging to the United States. And our capacity to survive as a country, I think, depends upon how well we navigate this over the next century or so. And we are stepping into that moment with the Pluto return, which is this reckoning. You cannot turn away from this. When the Pluto return is activating, a need to take a look at the shadow. All you got to do is turn on the news to watch this play out, and it's building into next year. And I'm just curious, I'm a white man, honey.
Yes.
Like, I have a role in this, that I have a voice. I have feelings and opinions about this. I want to talk about it, but I don't have the experience that you have as an astrologer in a black body, navigating this very same thing where you are watching what's happening in the way that I am as an observer on the world stage. But not to overly use a pun, I don't have the same skin in the game as you do. And so that's why I want you to talk about some of this. And, what do I need to know? What do I need to know, honey, as a white man, to appreciate this Pluto return as an astrologer?
Wow. That's such a fascinating perspective. What do you need to know? Well, I think the thing that is important is that Pluto is about power and desire, right? So
yes,
what we know is that we've been living out the structures and the systems that have been designed by white men. I always like to say that America is born out of a white man's mind.
Yeah.
I like to say that we are just
literally even.
Yes, we're inside of a white man's mind, or several white men's mind. Like, all of these systems were created by white men. And so in my own experience as a woman and as a Black person, they are devoid empathy, they are devoid humanity, they are focused on money and getting and gaining.
Yep.
They are absent, nature. They don't honor the earth. Like, all of these things are what came out of a white man's mind. And so first thing I do is I just notice that. I notice that. And then I notice how I participate in it. That's what I begin to ask myself. How do I participate in this? And it's everywhere. You can't not participate in it. You cannot. Nope. Because it's Pluto in Capricorn, I begin to comb through my own relationship to authority. So it's the systems, the medical system, the government, the education system, like all of the systems. That's Capricorn, right?
Yeah. So for those listening, just so you're clear, Capricorn is the sign that invented systems, structures. And when Pluto moved into Capricorn in 2008, 7 and 8, the recession began because all the structures began to fall apart.
Yes.
January of 2020, Pluto, Saturn, and Jupiter in Capricorn, destroying structures. Pluto return to the United States, forcing us to see these things for what they really are.
Yes.
How's your level of hope, honey? You got any hope?
Well, as a Black woman, I actually do have hope. And here's why. When I left Washington, D.C., I had been, like I said, I had been in an event where Bill Clinton and Jesse Jackson were. And I remember thinking, oh my God, the devil and his brother. and who's to say which one is which? I have no idea.
Which one is which?
I mean, really, it was like, wow. So when I left and I started my spiritual journey, I really took on that being a Black person in America meant that I was here to really come back to spiritual awakeness and power. Because the thing that I discovered in healing and doing the work around my own ancestry is that Black people were brought here to build this country because nobody else could.
Yes.
Like, we have a constitution, energetically, we have a constitution that allows us this deep spiritual power and strength that many of us don't even recognize anymore because of years and centuries of trauma. But as you do the work to reorganize your mentality and understand that, go into nature to look for what oppression means, right? So diamonds are oppressed. It is a coal that withstands the pressure of heat and all of that makes it a diamond. So what I know that as a Black person, I really do have extra
diamonds.
Yes, exactly. Like, I'm really made for this collapse. I really am. And all of us are.
I'm loving that you just said that because I feel made for this collapse.
Mm-hmm.
And you're the first person who I've heard say the same kind of thing.
Mm. Yes.
Collapse is the right word, though, honey.
I know. It is a collapse. And I feel made for it. And I feel ready to assist people who are open to doing the work to heal. Right.
Yes.
Like I'm very aware. I'm like, yes, black people have suffered horrible, tremendous traumas. But white people, and I'm not somebody who feels particularly like, oh, white people, but I'm clear that white people have experienced trauma too, because the experience of slave and slave master, we think they're separate, but they are not.
They're not.
And
no.
people who benefit off the challenges and difficulties of other people, there's something challenging in your brain, that makes a person be capable of benefiting from the suffering of others. And so we all need to heal.
You said something about the very first thing you talked about was really about noticing and awareness. There's a piece of hope that I have in there is that one of the things that rose up last year is that a lot of people learned about some things that they didn't know about before, like Juneteenth and 1619 and what really started America off. And people learned more about this.
Yes.
In fact, I had a profound experience in Arizona the other day. I was driving into the Southwest Desert to have a retreat. And I'm listening to NPR and I'm listening to Nicole Hannah-Jones, who's the Pulitzer Prize winning, journalist who wrote the 1619 Project for the Times, being interviewed on Fresh Air. And I'm hearing Nicole Hannah-Jones say racism is structural. And I'm like, oh my God, yes. And I'm like, Pluto, structure, Capricorn, structure.
Right.
And I'm getting excited about all of this. And then I decided to look at something. In August of 1619, when that ship landed off the coast of Virginia, delivering the first black-bodied slaves to North America, Pluto was at 12 degrees of Taurus. That's where Uranus is right now. That means the Great Awakener is hanging out in territory that the power and authority planet was at in August of 1619. We are being woken up, for those who have eyes to see, about how deep this institutionalized racism goes and how far back it goes.
Yes.
That gives me some hope that people can and will wake up enough to start joining this shift and change.
Yes. Well, here's the thing. The thing that I'm aware of with the few white men that are in my life, I don't have many, is that the things that it feels like white men may have had access to that were just givens are beginning to crumble.
Yeah.
And so that sort of guarantee of respect or power or is starting to come undone. And
aren't they terrified?
Yes. And the thing that is most beautiful to me is, in a black body is this deep spiritual power that we have if we cultivate. And when I was young, it was the oddest thing. Like a lot of black people grew up with stories of Martin Luther King and pictures. And, like I said, I grew up in a family that was very religious. And so I used to have it's like Martin Luther King was like a spirit guide for me. And I would hear him say, it was almost like you have to forgive the perpetrators of those who do harm. And the forgiveness is not about letting them off the hook. That's not what it's about at all. It's about not becoming them.
Wow.
That's right.
Because that is historically what happens. Oppressed people rise up and become oppressed.
That's right. And I am very aware that I have no desire to take the power that white men have had and use it in the way that it has been used. Because that just does not. Now, the other thing about Capricorn is karmic. It's ruled by Saturn. So, it's important to recognize that these energies need to be transmuted. And so I see myself as a transmuter of the energy, not to let white people off the hook, because nobody can put you on the hook or let you off the hook. You have to live through your own consciousness around guilt and shame. And I feel like that's the greatest thing that I witness with white people, is that they have so much guilt because they have benefited from the harm and trauma of other people. And so you got to reconcile that inside of yourself. Like, I have found myself in spaces with white women in particular, friends or not, or, associates. And I have often wondered, like, what do they think of a woman who's a Black person who has a son, and you hear Black men being killed, and like George Floyd changed our lives.
Yes.
We watched this man be murdered by a cop, and no longer could we deny what is the truth of the nature.
That's Pluto Return. That right there. We cannot turn away. We cannot ignore this any longer. Honey, I could talk to you for 1,000 hours about this, but I got a very short podcast. So I just wanted to sort of wrap up as an astrologer, as the moon mama, as a person who literally every day, as part of your existence, helps people through transformation and change. What do you got to offer my listeners about how to use astrology as a context tool as we move through next year and reconcile the next step in this progress that we're trying to push forward?
Okay, well, really quickly, one of the things that I'm beginning to work on right now is Venus retrograde in Capricorn. Venus retrograde is the first step to us beginning to really see where we have been holding shame and guilt, where we've denied our own power, where we have usurped other people's power. I feel like the retrogrades and the returns are opportunities for us to really go back and claim things personally and responsibly. So it's a really great time to just look at the shit.
Yeah.
And you can't run from it, though. You cannot outrun it. It will show up in your life some way. And if you surrender with love and deep compassion for yourself, you can actually move this energy into something that is beautiful, if you're willing.
If you're willing. Love that. Love you. Thank you for coming, Monique Ruffin. Where can people find you?
They can find me on my website. It's MoniqueRuffin.com. They can also just go to Facebook or Instagram, Monique Ruffin, and I'm everywhere as Monique Ruffin. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much for coming, honey.
Thank you. I love being with you. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you for listening to Conscious Embodiment, Astrology and Dreams with Dr. Michael Lennox. You can find us on Apple Music, the iHeartRadio app, and anywhere you find your favorite shows. Head on over to michaellennox.com for information on astrology readings, the daily Astro Alert subscription, upcoming classes, and to join the mailing list.